I believe achieving success in the outdoor biz is dependent upon embracing the outdoor lifestyle and learning from outdoor leaders that came before you. If you agree, then listen up for tips, advice, and hacks about growing or starting your career in the outdoor biz. My name is Rick Sayes. Welcome to episode 189 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you in part by the Something About Nothing podcast. Think the Seinfeld show meets your favorite morning show. It's a few regular folks from outside Seattle, Washington, talking around the table about sports, the news of the day, and the absurdity of life. Something About Nothing is an entertaining variety show that covers all the stuff you want to talk about but aren't supposed to. Available wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify. Check it out today. Just search SOMETHIN about NOTHIN. You won't believe how fun listening to a show about nothing can be. I'm excited to share my fun conversation with Kristin Carpenter from Verde Brand Communications today. Kristin and I talk about how she built Verde into a talented team and collection of brands, her Channel Mastery podcast, a favorite of mine, and more. But first, if you're thinking about starting a podcast, visit ricksays.com/podcast cheat sheet and get my 10-step guide to producing your first podcast. Go to ricksays.com/podcast cheat sheet and begin producing your podcast today. That's ricksays.com/podcast cheat sheet. Hey, Kristin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rick, it is so great to be here. I've been a huge fan of your show for a long time, and I'm honored to be a guest on yours.
Thanks. It's great to be talking to you. I've listened to your show regularly as well. It's in my queue.
Awesome. Thank you for being a subscriber.
Yeah. So here's a question to start off the show with. How many podcasts are in your app, would you say, off the top of your head?
You mean how many episodes
10?
have I done?
How many shows do you listen to? How many shows are in your queue?
Oh my gosh, that is such a great question. And I would have to say it vacillates between probably 15 and 25.
Okay. All right. I'm in there. That's about what I have. Yeah.
Yep. And it's
That's
like
good.
a range. It's like my cycling nerd out stuff. I've got Tim Ferriss and some of the like blockbuster ones. And I also like Lewis Howes. I follow a ton of online coaching and marketing people. And then just some random like ball and bat sports stuff that I share like in common with my brothers, and we love to like go back and forth about. So
yeah, very cool. Yeah, I'm the same. I have a pretty broad mix. Lewis Howes is in there. He's a good one. Tim Ferriss is in there. I just got back from not to get too far off topic. Got back from a weekend in Vegas mastermind with a bunch of major online e-commerce podcast guys. Do you know Steve Sims?
I don't.
Did you read the book Blue Fishing?
I haven't read that.
Oh man, you got to get that book. Everybody's got to get that book. This guy was a plumber as a kid and just couldn't handle being a plumber, and has now turned himself into this multi-millionaire who he's just shifting his business now. But he's basically what he was doing was, if you had a bucket list thing that you wanted to do in your life, major bucket list, like millions of dollars bucket list, you could pay him and he'd get it done for you. So this one couple he talks about wanted to have dinner at the Statue of David, and he set it up. Got him in there, had a table, had a full-on 7-course meal. So it's a great book, but we're off topic. Let's get back on topic.
That is actually a really genius business, though.
Oh my goodness. Some of the story, that's why the book's so great, because he talks about all those things that he did for people. It's crazy. One guy wanted to play guitar with Steve Perry, and it's phenomenal. So good one. I got to hang with him last weekend. That was exciting. Shout out to Steve Sims. Yeah. Thanks, Steve. So let's start with how you got into the outdoors. How'd you get introduced to the outdoors?
Well, you'll love this story because it has to do with raft guiding. And I know that I have that in common. But So I grew up playing ball and bat sports. My dad actually played for the New York Yankees organization for 9 years.
Cool.
And so I was his only girl. I have 3 ginormous brothers. They're all over 6'7". One is 6'8.5". And so we literally we grew up in Southern California, and it was sports year round from the time I can remember, and that's what our little world was. And it was literally, I started running track when I was 7. My dad had me in I always love this story. I call it my first draft. I was 7.5 and he had me go out for a boys t-ball team. And this isn't the best messaging at all, but my dad meant well, but he said, come on, you don't want to play softball. You're going to learn so much more playing baseball. And, I remember he dropped me off at this team meeting and I was horrified, the only girl. And but soon enough, I kind of became like the peppermint Patty of that team. I was batting cleanup and playing center field like him.
Wow.
And I just was, he used to say, I know he meant well, he just didn't know any better. He said things like, gosh, it's too bad you're a girl. You're the best athlete in the family. And I was like, I think that's a compliment, but my brother's
it was
like
different times back then too, though.
It totally was. And so, we all grew up in the San Fernando Valley, and my brothers all got, two of them got football scholarships. One went to Stanford, one went to U of H.
Wow.
And my little brother got a basketball scholarship to Hofstra, and I went to basketball, UC Davis on basketball.
Cool.
And I also ran track there. I loved that. And by the time I got to Davis, I have to tell you, I was pretty burned out on basketball year round. And so I focused more on track. I just basically did that. And I know it wasn't a popular decision in my house, but I did it. And then I was, I had a really good friend, and we were working in the art supply, like part of the bookstore together. And one day she came in with a flyer for, I'm going to go try out to be a raft guide. And I was like, that sounds cool. And so I went with her, even though I had no experience. And I somehow got into the program, and I went to guide training, and it was freezing, snowing,
Where'd you do that?
Oh, the South Fork of the American.
Yeah. Okay. That's where I went. Everybody went.
Yeah. And it was a freezing cold weekend, but I was super excited. I knew the very second I walked into the silo that night, like to go through, guide training orientation, that I had found my people. I was like, okay, where have you been all my life? And so I just dove into that headlong, and I'll never forget. I was going through guide training. We were on the third day, and it was my turn to guide. It was literally so cold and rainy. And I was going through, if you are familiar with this, remember hospital bar and recovery room?
Yeah.
Okay. So hospital bar, I somehow knocked my front tooth out on that.
Oh.
On the
On
floor.
a paddle?
I don't know how I did it. I'm really talented at a lot of things, but I did that, and popped back up and was like,
ready to go.
And then the lady who was teaching us that day looked at me. I looked like Alfred E. Newman, like missing my front tooth. And so I camped that night, and it was not comfortable. And then went to, we got off river the next day. I called my dad from a payphone because, yes, it was that long ago.
Yeah.
And I told him what happened, and he was like, do you even know the thousands of dollars? I literally had braces from the time I was in 4th grade until 10th grade. And that's all he could think about was
the money.
Yeah. And then, that's basically how I got my start. Those were my people. Next thing I knew, I was going rock climbing. We had a gym inside at UC Davis. It was before Beth Rodden's, gym in Davis that became so famous. That was actually opened in my junior year. But we climbed in the gym in the rec center there. And then we would go outside on the weekends. That's where I learned how to mountain bike. And literally, I just knew that that's where I wanted to be. And as I graduated,
did you change your major? Sorry to interrupt. Did you change your major to recreation?
No, but you know what I did? This is such a great story. I'm so glad you asked me. So I was a poli-sci major, and I noticed that a lot of people I was raft guiding with, including the instructors, were geology majors. And I was like, I bet you I should do that. Right. So I switched to that, and I took all the core classes for a year, and they were not fun, but I got through them. And then I remember I went to meet with my advisor to kind of pick my track for geology, and he sat my ass down. Sorry, I used.
That's okay. You can do that. Yep.
Okay. And he's like, I got to tell you, you're not meant for this. And I was like, what do you mean I'm not meant for this? He's like, you can't memorize your way through what you're about to go into here. Cause that's what I did. I just worked really hard and memorized everything I had to. And he's like, that's just not conceptually, that's not going to work. And I was like, fine. And so I looked at what I had the most units in. And of course it was poli-sci, and I graduated in 4 years and, got out and basically told my dad, my grandparents had gifted me an outdoor, that was a Knowles course. And I was like, oh my God, awesome. This is, But my dad was like, you know what? I'm sorry. We can't do that. You need to go get a job. And I was like, but this is how I'm going to get a job. And he's like, no. The next thing I knew, I was, in Texas, because my brothers kind of like made my dad think about what I should do. And he's like, why don't you do what they did? And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I was in Texas selling copiers door to door.
Oh, God.
That lasted 3 months. Then I went to work at Austin's REI. That lasted 4 months. I loved it. I'm friends with the people I was climbing with down there. And then I got in my little pickup truck with my dog and literally had only hefty bags in the back. Like I didn't even have a shell. Like all my stuff was in hefty bags and laundry baskets. And I went on a 5-month road trip, and that's how I found Durango. I ended up going from Austin to Friday Harbor, Washington.
Wow.
And I ran out of
trip.
money up there. And then I had to move home for a year to Southern California. And then I moved back to Durango. And that's basically all she wrote. And that's another, like, I can talk about that. But ultimately, that's how I found my people. Your people listening to this are my people.
That's it. Yep. Same. I was already into the outdoor scene, but stumbled on the river guiding, the guiding aspect of it. And oh my God, I was hooked. So much fun.
It is. It was the best job.
Yep. Yep. Good entrance into this industry too. If you want to get started, that's a good place to start. So Verde has been operating for 19 years now. When's the 20th anniversary?
2021.
Oh, okay. Got you. Right.
I still can't believe that. That's crazy.
Yeah, good. So what was the catalyst behind starting that? How'd you get that off the ground? Where'd that come from?
Well, I was in the second best job in the world, which was writing about outdoor adventure and gear. So I had that gig for 10 years as a journalist. So I was, really motivated. And I was working for lots of different magazines. It was kind of the golden era of journalism where I could pitch story ideas. And next thing I knew, I was like in Austria visiting the Gore rain room, like it was just a really fantastic time. And I was traveling all over the place. And my husband and I got pregnant with my son. And he was a professional big wall climber for the North Face and was doing expeditions with like Alex Lowe and Greg Child and Mark Sinnott was like in our wedding. Like, it was really, he was doing really cool stuff. And basically we kind of looked at each other and he's like, well, one of us has to deal. Those were his words. Exactly. And I was like,
meaning one of us has to pay the bills.
I think partially that, but also like I'm carrying the baby. Like obviously I can't travel as much anymore. And he wasn't ready to hang it up. Right.
Yeah, sure.
And I was like, oh, okay. And, really kind of not sure about what I was going to do. And I remember calling Penn Newhart, which is funny because he's like, quote, a competitor now. We're all friends, but
sure.
I remember calling him.
That's the great thing about the industry. We can all be friends and still compete. Yeah.
Exactly. And he was at my wedding with his wife and his kids, and like Nate Simmons was at the wedding. Like it's just, we were tight because I was, a journalist for 10 years working with those guys.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember telling him what I was going to do. And he's like, I don't think that's a good idea. I think you should stay as a writer. But then, I kept talking to him about it a little more. And he's like, yeah, if you want to do it, great. And just go for it. Like, don't reminisce about your journalism years, like put that behind you and move on. And what I discovered so quickly is that I was working with all the same people who I just loved, and I was able to like serve them in a different way. And so ultimately what happened is we got pregnant. I basically, while I was pregnant, I opened Verde. Literally like Tobin was in a car seat on the floor in the basement of our first house. And that's where I started. And I had Sportiva and Metolius as my first clients. And I remember, writing about them for Snooze and Outdoor Retailer and these different trade publications. And I remember telling the people at those companies at the time, you guys really need a PR agency. And I had a friend who was opening one. And I was like, I've got a great guy who would be great for you. And they both said in the same week, both the presidents, so Doug Phillips and at the time, Ed Sampson was the president of La Sportiva. And both of them said separately, you know what? He sounds great. We don't know him. We know you. We want you to do it. So it was like the universe was chucking a cinder block at my head. And I was like, all right, I'm doing it. And then like before I knew it, like literally 3 months later, we had Prana, and that really, things took off. I mean, after that, we really started rolling, and I had an interesting approach at that time because I was creating an agency that I really wanted when I was a journalist. Like I wanted fun experiences. Like literally one of the first events we did was at Hooters in Salt Lake. Where I lived like mail product line reviews. Yeah. And like we invited 15 people. We had 48 people show up. Like just to kind of see what the hell is going on.
Yeah, what is going on? This is unique. Let's check this out. That's great.
Was just like we, fed them beer and wings, and it was 3-2, of course, Salt Lake. But we did our product line presentations there.
That's awesome
for the men's lines, and then we did pedicures for the women at the Grand America, which had just opened. Yeah. So like that's kind of the approach we took, and we really tried to be quirky, and at the same time we were beating like anytime we were working on anything for any journalist, whether it was a client or not, we would help them. We'd always be there early with fact checking. That's how I built my freelance business too, is I was, file stuff clean, file it early. I remember Dwayne Raleigh from Climbing at the time. He was not even at Rock and Ice as the owner yet. He was at Climbing. And I remember I wrote for him and he's like, I love that you file stuff early and on time and it's never on a paper plate or a napkin.
So you got to do it right?
He used to literally get like climbers in Camp 4.
I can imagine. Oh my God. I can only imagine.
So anyways, it was fantastic. Every single part of my journey just reaffirmed how much I just love the people in this world. And what I love more is that we all love bringing new people into this world. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so much fun. Yeah. Bringing the newbies on and helping them coach them up. Yeah. So you have a nice collection of clients and brands and services these days. What, how have things changed over the years? Have you shifted gears a little bit?
Over the years, it's more like over the months, right?
Changes month to month.
It is changing it continues to change so fast. I mean, I'd have to say from probably, 2007. And then obviously we had the great unpleasantness happen, right? But ultimately that window was a big, I really noticed that's when we had to really change a lot from an organizational structure standpoint to really manage like having people on the front lines looking for opportunity to having people researching the new channels that were popping up, such as social media, et cetera.
Right.
And it just literally hasn't stopped since then. And I actually thrive on the change. And that's what we were talking about in our, before we hit record today.
Yeah.
We love hiring raft guides because they could literally be like mid rapid and they have to like figure out how to like, avoid wrapping.
Shit, there's a tree there. I didn't see that tree when we were scouting this.
Or a strainer.
Yeah, exactly.
But literally like being able to think on your feet and actually enjoy that and monitor the landscape for your clients and really just be of service to like media, because God, do those people have to hustle now. It's crazy. And they need us. We've helped, they've helped us grow. And now the great agencies in our space are helping the media. And that's what we really try and do as much as we can. But honestly, I just love like the thing you went to in Vegas last week. I kind of feel like every gathering, every media event we do now is sort of like that. It's like you're getting all these new insights and here's the new lay of the land. And then you can meet with them 3 months later and it's different.
Yep. It changes. Yep. Is that what's the most fun and rewarding for you is the change? Is it? Is it? It is. And here's what I think is, for me personally, what's most fun and rewarding, like from a client care standpoint, because as you know, like this business is so relationship driven, right? You get so attached and you care so much about the people at the companies you work with. That's why I founded my podcast, was because I was seeing these great people who were leading with heart and passion. I literally felt like I could see in the near future them being replaced by young number cruncher tech wizards who didn't really give a shit about climbing or like river sports or any of the stuff that we get out of bed to like further and make great every day. And I was like, I have got to do something about this and like figure out a way to take this incredible like body of research and articles, and like there's a ton available for Target and Nordstrom's and these huge retailers and these huge brands. And so I was like, I'm just going to be a journalist again and try and take this news and make it relevant to our folks. And so that's basically how the podcast Channel Mastery was started. And gotcha.
And honestly, like some of my clients don't even listen to it. I'm not
Really?
kidding you. Yeah. And it's just what you have to do, I guess, is I keep sending it to them in different forms, and then they finally do. And sometimes I'll
Yeah.
call them out, and and they always listen to the ones I call them out on. And,
Sure. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's
Shame them
just,
into it. Yeah.
exactly, in a nice way, but
Well, we
that's,
were also talking earlier about how new podcasting is, and people are still kind of trickling into it. It's. I think I said earlier, it amazes me to this day, how many people don't listen or don't have, brands, businesses don't have one. So huge opportunity out there. Speaking of opportunity to like that, how has the podcast benefited Verde?
oh, it's been interesting, Rick, because I even have some of my like longest standing, my business partner, one of my business partners, about a year ago was like, I'm starting to see why you're doing this. He's like, I have a couple clients who ask me about it and ask who's going to be on the show. And like, I literally have people who are like some of my most senior people who I didn't know this, but who are like, what is she doing? But I think everybody's on
Sorry to
board.
laugh, but I get
No,
it.
it's funny. And everybody's on board now, but it's been really very helpful, actually. Not only from being able to send things to prospective clients that we've covered on the show that kind of show them how we do things. It definitely shows just how service minded we are, because we really do exist to like make great things happen and create expansion for our clients. And
Yeah.
the show is just another way to do that. But I think, kind of to your point, as we were talking before we hit record, like it's a really, it's a way that a prospective client can really hear the way we think and hear it straight from the CEO and founder, which I think is powerful. And
Yeah.
so that's been helpful. It's also resulted in me, after 2 years of doing this, like Snooze and Bicycle Retailer and SIA are now syndicating certain episodes, which is
Oh,
cool.
interesting. Yeah.
And that just started like last month, so that's been great. And
Yeah, very cool. I'll have to look into that.
yeah, so I'm happy that is happening. And
Yeah.
I just, now we kind of find out from our, I have people on my team emailing, you should do a show on this, or do you have anything I can send this person about this quandary? And so, just like you with over 200 shows, I don't have that many, but sometimes it's like a little like you have this like body of work, and sometimes great things can get lost in there. So
Yeah.
the more you can repurpose it and like unearth it and bring it back up is good. And I love that you're doing a book every 65 shows, you said. Is that about right?
Well, I did. It turned out to be 65 because I had the writers I was working with do the first 100 episodes, and that was going to be a 300-page book. And I thought, it might be a little bit of a large book to launch. Let's cut that in half. So
we have to wait till you're like on Tim Ferriss level,
right.
which I'm sure will be soon.
He's got, well, I hope so. That'd be fun. Yeah. His Tools of Titans has got him. What's that? 500, 600?
That's exactly the one I was referring to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good
That'd be a good
read.
one. That'd be a good one for the outdoor biz, right? We've all got stuff like that. Yeah. So what are some of your other thoughts on podcasting in the outdoor industry? What are some of the specific outdoor related podcasts that you listen to? What do you think the opportunities might be for brands or businesses or other, media folks, PR firms?
Well, I definitely I'm not just saying this to brown nose you. I definitely like your show.
Thank you.
And I love shows that really bring you into the field or into what the source, the subject matter is. I mean, let's face it, our markets in the outdoor active lifestyle, like in our DNA is storytelling, whether it's, at the end of the day, on the way home from an adventure, around a campfire, for weeks after you do something like Leadville, you're like, ask me about Leadville. Ask me about this ridiculous belt buckle I'm wearing, with my yoga pants or whatever. Right. But like my
or how
point
I got that bruise on my shoulder.
Exactly. Or how I knocked my front tooth out. Why I have a gold tooth now. Just kidding. But really,
don't do that.
I won't. But really what I think it is it's like a perfect medium for us to tell our stories in a way that is so easy to listen to, so portable. But we are I think our very nature, we are storytellers in this market. And I think there's even been broader business publications that have actually called us out on that. What Silicon Valley can learn from the outdoor industry. And that was a couple of years ago. And they brought in Nicholas Woodman as an example, who was a former client of ours. But point being is, it is a perfect medium for this. And I feel like for those who have the luxury of doing video shows and vlogs, like even better if it's great content. So I watched, I'm doing the Dirty Kansas this year, which is terrifying, but I've literally been binge
I don't know
watching.
that. What's that?
So it's a 200-mile gravel event in Emporia, Kansas.
Ooh.
And it's pretty rugged. Apparently, like if it's not a headwind, it could be rainy, and you're literally like riding your bike over like arrowheads and stuff. It's like Flint Hills is where you are.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm really excited about it, but I'm massively intimidated. And now that we work with Lifetime, and this is like the world's preeminent gravel event, like I'm going to do it. And not only am I going to do this, but I signed up to do like the Lead Boat, which is Steamboat Gravel in Leadville.
I saw that you announced that recently. Yeah, that was good. Good for you.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
I think, but
it's just fun. Yeah, it's fun.
But again, I've already like started to watch Ted King's, vlog, and I'm listening to channels like the Gravel Cyclist podcast, and I'm starting to feel like a lot more confident and a lot more like, okay, I can see what I need to do here. And you literally can see like, okay, I see exactly what I need for the first 60 miles. I already know from this content. So not only do I have great stories from this stuff that I'm watching and it's entertaining, but I'm learning how not to face plant when I show up there.
Right. Right.
So I just think it's a fantastic medium, and it's going to just continue to grow and widen the portal and bring more and more people into what we love, because it removes that intimidation factor, I think.
Yeah, it helps speed up the learning curve, if you will. Yeah, or inspire you. I mean, some of the stories are just so inspiring. Some of the things that these guys do, it's like, I got to get off my butt and go do something. Holy cow, come on,
Yes.
Yeah.
Or if he or she can do it, I bet I can.
Right. Or I might not be able to do that, but I can do something different. And that's true. Yeah.
So
yeah, I do too. And it's so much fun once you get behind the mic. I didn't expect that. And now that I'm behind the mic for over 200 shows, it's a blast still.
You definitely have like a natural way of interviewing people too.
Thanks. The curiosity in me. So what are some of the new initiatives you guys are working on? Can you talk about anything coming up?
Well, boy, I mean, here we are kind of wrapping up 2019, but for all practical purposes, we're in 2020.
Yeah, this will probably be dropped in 2020. So
yeah, so I would have to say, I mean, we continue to
it's a new decade after all.
That's crazy.
I know. I keep hitting myself with that. I was like, wow, yeah, that's big.
That's the first time I've really thought about it that way. So, but we're continuing to look at what our clients need us to do and the media. So we basically look at those two, key stakeholders that we serve, and we're constantly trying to figure out, what do they need from us now? Okay. So for example, one of the things that we really see, and we are able to like offer strategy, and we can integrate what we do into like a newsletter, for example, right now. But as well as I do, like you have a quote lead magnet, which is something that you can capture email because you're giving a valuable like podcast cheat sheet away. Right.
Right.
I would love it if we could get some of our brands to build their email lists through value-added content like that, potentially through a podcast or any, there's a couple other ways they could do it, obviously.
Bunch of ways.
Building that newsletter list and that nurture sequence and really starting to caretake that is going to really help all the channels, And I feel like that the more they have this pond to fish in, and the people in that pond can choose what channel they want to listen, engage, buy, whatever. That to me is like what the mothership of the brand is really needing to do. It's not only about email, but we love email because they own that, and they can't have an algorithm changed on that.
Exactly. They can't, Facebook goes down and, you're hosed because your posts are gone for the week or wherever it is. But if you have an email, you can still directly contact people. Yeah.
Exactly. And I also feel like it's just, if people let you into their sacred email space, then you have to work really hard to continue to have that honor. But I also hear from some of my younger employees that they hate opt-ins. And so I feel like, once again, the preferences are changing. And the other thing I really love right now is, sometimes we forget, like, you know how that you can't see the forest through the trees kind of thing. Sometimes we forget it as, Verdians, my people at Verde, like that we actually are the consumer. And we
Yeah.
have to stop for a while and look at how we follow brands, why we fall in love with brands, and why we don't fall in love with other brands, and bring that to the way that we're advising our clients. And that's one of the things that we hear over and over again about clients who are with us for a long time or who select us through like a competitive process, is they like how strategic we are. And ultimately we really do try and come from a place where it's serving that particular business. We call it the gap jump. It's they're either in the middle of it, they've landed it, they've totally tacoed it, or
biffed on the other side.
yeah, they're about to go and take another run, right? Like, so I feel like that gap jump, like the circular gap jump, like wherever they are in that, and it can be around a bunch of different initiatives. That's where we have to build a strategy. And what I love is that we can create kind of from our core competency, because we're all like, a lot of us, if not all of us, have some kind of journalism background. And so we really come at it from a journalism background, the storytelling and bridging the story and the brand to the consumer. And the channel is a vehicle for that. But thankfully that storytelling and how we tell it and the medium we tell it on is really something that really hasn't changed. But that might be why I'm so comfortable with change, because that core competency is always there.
Yeah. And do you look outside the outdoor industry for some of those inspirations and new techniques and things?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Where are some of the places that you look?
So that's such a great question. Sometimes, and this is, people are going to laugh at this, and that's okay. But my daughter, I took her to Southern California recently. And she wanted to visit her best friend who just moved out there, and I'm friends with their family. So I was like, sure, let's go. That sounds awesome, for her birthday. And she apparently chose this weekend with her friend out there because it was actually the launch of one of their favorite YouTube creators' cosmetics lines.
Oh.
And so I was traveling with her, and she was super excited about it. And I had her show me like all of the stuff that these two guys had done to build this cosmetics collection. And
brilliant.
And it was fascinating to see the following, how they nurture the following, how they made a story out of the product. That product sold out in less than an hour, by the way, whether it was on the website or on the select retailers. And like they only had a certain number of cities with a very certain retailer. And honestly, like we're already starting to do things like that on a smaller scale, because none of our clients have like 300 million people following them on YouTube. That's an exaggeration, but it definitely is in the double-digit millions for this particular case study. So like I'm watching this, I just obsess and nerd out on it all the time. I also watch a lot of athletic events, like Major League Baseball to soccer. I love to just watch how things go to the consumer. Like in the past, we may have called it go to market, but now it's go to consumer.
Yeah.
And anywhere
launch,
you
and
look,
now it's launch. It's a big launch. It's like you launch these things. Yeah, it's interesting. I just did that with my my book. I paid to sign up for this, educational online course and interactive Facebook group to learn how to launch a book. And it was interesting going through that process. I don't think I executed it as well as everybody as they were teaching, but there's a bunch of reasons for that. But yeah, it's phenomenal. These guys know almost to the piece how many you're gonna move before the thing even goes off. It's amazing.
And in our world, our past world, Rick, that's how I think people felt about print catalogs. Remember, they would say, you print and drop this many and you make this much money. It's like pretty much a set thing.
Or the mail order business. Well, if I only mail 1,000 catalogs, I'm not going to get that much. I got to mail 50,000 catalogs. Then I'll get so much money. Yeah, you're right.
So I feel like this is kind of it's new and different, but it's just a different
digital version
vehicle.
of that. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
So I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more of that come online. And then even though influencers are becoming more controlled and there's legislation and everything around that, I still see interesting evolution around that. And it's not just like micro in nano or whatever. It's not that at all. It's more the human to human connection. So one of my favorite books right now that I just love to look at again and again is Mark Schaefer's Marketing Manifesto, I believe it's called. So you could put the link to that maybe in the show, but it's heartening to read, because at first you're like nauseated when you read his prelude and it's like about, marketing is going to die, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh shit, but then you read it and you're like, he's talking about the importance of human to human relationships. And if any market or any like area in business is set up for that. It's ours, right?
Yeah, right.
We just have to remember that
Yeah.
we have to keep that human to human connection front and center and use technology to augment how we deliver it and the ways that we can become even better for the people who follow us. So I feel like it's not doom and gloom. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I feel like specialty is just poised to crush. If people are willing to be nimble and evolve continually, they have a ton of opportunity right now.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's why voice is becoming so important too with, it used to be text messages and emails, and now it's becoming voice and podcasts and whatnot. And that helps that human to human connection, because we're losing that through all the other digital stuff that we're doing. So I think that's going to be huge. Yeah.
I agree.
Cool. Yeah. So let's shift gears a little bit. You must get out and ride a lot. What other outdoor activities do you participate in? You ride every day, I'm assuming.
Well, I mean, I'm
Almost.
a little bit of a weirdo because I get up really early, and really the only way I can train is early in the morning. So I try and get it out of the way. I do a lot on my trainer, and then I try and get a couple rides in, as I can over the week that are outside and longer. But I love to Nordic ski. I'm not a great downhill skier, but I love to go, especially with my kids, meaning like I can't keep up with them, but I enjoy like their warm up runs. But I sure do love Nordic. I love fat biking. I love ice climbing. I haven't done a lot of climbing recently, but I do love to get out and boulder. And what I love to do in climbing these days is more like the Grand Teton or something. Like I love things like that, where you're able to really like meld fitness, moving fast, eating a bunch as much as you can pack in. I mean, my most recent trip up the Grand was with Jack Tackle. And it was one of the best days of my life, hands down, because he's so damn funny. But we actually did the Grand in a day, and a day meaning we started at 1:30 in the morning and we wrapped up at like 6:30 at night. And when I met him in the parking lot at 1:30 in the morning, he pulled out a scale and weighed my pack, went through it and pulled out everything I thought I needed and wanted most. And then he was like, "Okay, girlfriend, let's go."
Stuffed it with food.
So like there was hardly anything in it. I'm like, "What are we going to eat?" And he's like, "Don't worry, I've got it covered, girlfriend." But we ended up, that was our second attempt. The first attempt we got stormed off, this was like the next summer, and we ended up doing it. It was awesome.
Good for you. Very cool.
Yeah. And it was the full Exum. It was grown up climbing.
Yeah, good. Well, hey, the Grand usually is. I mean, some of those mountains, they're the classics. They're usually classics for a reason.
Yeah, and to do it with someone like that was
exactly.
just the best.
Yeah, I'll have to see if he'll come on the show. He'd be a great storyteller.
Oh, he would be fantastic.
He'd be awesome.
You have to have him on the show.
Have to hit him up. Yeah. So you get up early. Do you have any other daily routines to keep your sanity? You meditate?
I actually have. I'm one of those people who really believes in morning routines. So I journal, I meditate, and I do yoga. And so I do a lot before I get my kids up to go and do what they have to do. But I feel like it's like you can't have the orchestra play without tuning up, right?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And so I'm a really big believer in that.
Yep. I do the same. I get up and do this. I used to meditate, but I don't do that anymore. But yeah, it's helps prepare you and set the tone for the day, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So do you have any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get into the outdoor biz, or maybe if they're already in, grow their career?
Oh my gosh, it's what a great time for that, right? So I'm going to address them both separately. If you're wanting to get into this industry, and I have a nephew who is working he's an engineer, he just got out of school, and he's working in Houston in the oil and gas industry because he went to school in Houston and grew up in Houston. And he is such an outdoor, nut skier. Like, I just know he's going to figure out a way to work in these industries. So I basically was talking him off the ledge of going and living in his car because my brother would kill me. But, basically you don't have to go live out of your car. I feel like this is the era of the side hustle, right? So I feel like in his case, if he wanted to become a ski designer, for example.
Uh-huh.
He could go work at an outdoor store outside of his work hours, learn how to boot fit. Like, there's an apprenticeship. I don't think it has to last forever, but then you start to meet these amazing people. You start to meet the reps. Maybe you can come to a show. Like, there's a little bit of the stuff we've seen forever, but there's also a lot of the fast track where he could start publishing content on a topic that he loves. And I just feel like it's whatever you're into, study what else is out there, study what you love that feeds you, and then see what you can bring to that conversation. And don't be afraid to try, because it's all about testing and learning today. And really, I feel like it's just, there's never been more opportunity. And for people in the industry, and I'd like to especially call out females who are working their way up and want to take on more leadership, I haven't seen a lot of resources that can coach outside of like a corporate environment. And I think that there are a number of women who have amassed some experience in this market who I think are interested in.
A lot of talented, super talented women. Yeah.
And you've had a lot of them on your show, frankly. And I feel like they're super open to helping, and they may not have the time to do something structured. But my point is, we love bringing new people into this market, and whether they're brand new or they're working their way up, we need new leadership always, right? And I feel like the people in the market now who you look up to, or the brands that you admire, don't be shy about reaching out to them and tell them, like, I'd love to learn more from you. Is there anything what are you reading these days? Like, what should I get my hands on? Like, I just feel like people can reach out, and there's more ways to do that than ever before, where they can just start networking and asking how to learn from these people who have amassed this experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's one of the things that we talked about in this event I was at last weekend was, networking. One of the guys who I worked with as a coach for my podcast, he has a podcast about networking. His saying is, your net worth is your network. And he's so right. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do this podcast if I hadn't built a strong network of great friends and acquaintances in the outdoor biz. And we're all very approachable and open. And it's a little different, I think, in our industry than others, in that you can reach out to people and, ask for time and ask for help. Whereas some other industries, you might need to, kind of sidle up to that a little bit, comment on a post that they made or something that you know about them. I like this, that, or the other thing. Our group, you could pretty much just reach right out and we'll help anybody. I mean, that's what's great about the outdoor industry. That's what's great about the biz. I love it. Yeah.
There aren't gatekeepers.
Right. We're not shy. And how about some of your favorite podcasts and books? Do you give books as gifts very often?
Well, I already cited Mark Schaefer's. He has a podcast as well, and it's called Grow, I believe. But it's if you just Google him, you'd see all of it.
I'll link to that in the show notes. Yeah.
And I also, I'm gonna actually pull up my list here, because I do have some that I just absolutely love. That I love Dave Asprey's. I think.
Oh yeah, I listened to him a couple. I didn't get so much into his regularly, but I listened to a few of his. Yeah,
they're great.
He's
for
the guy
like
that did what is it, Bulletproof Coffee? Yeah,
exactly. And then let's see. I actually just started to listen to the Whoop podcast. That's WHOOP. And I have one of their wrist heart rate variability trackers, because I'm a nerd and I love data around working out, but that's all about recovery. And so those are two kind of human performance ones. I love that kind of stuff.
Cool.
I love Rich Roll's podcast.
Okay.
I love the Omni Talk Red Archer Retail. That's Chris Walton and Ann Mazanga's podcast. And during the tours, like the Giro and the Tour de France and the Vuelta, the cycling podcast, which Rafa is the key sponsor of, is fantastic, because you literally feel like you're in Italy watching the Giro when you listen to it. Like, they talk about wine and food, and they have great, those shows that have like the fantastic side effects where they just transport you there. Anytime that comes out, I'm like stoked when they have a new episode. Oprah too.
Oprah, yeah, she's a good one. Yeah. So when you're like riding the Leadville or whatever that other one that you mentioned with the gravel, what are you going to listen to, or what do you listen to when you're actually in the moment, not training? You're living it.
Well, I actually don't. I didn't listen to a podcast, even though I had plenty of time. 9 hours and 25 minutes to be exact. I did not want to, like, I don't know. I I don't even know if it's allowed. Like some of the events don't allow you to
really?
have
Okay.
earpods in, but for the training facet of it, I cycle through all of these. Another one I like is
Gotcha.
Philosophize This.
Okay.
I think that's a really good one. I'm looking again through here. And yeah, I think those are kind of the main ones. And if I'm really like a long one that talks a lot about cycling and whatnot is the Get Faster podcast by Trainer Road. And I actually had Nate Pearson on as a guest recently because that's an example, Rick, of a brand that added a podcast. It came from the forum, then it evolved into like a webinar series on Q&A, and then they made it into a podcast. And it's like an amazing podcast. And I feel like it's crowdsourced. So those are some of the things I listen to.
Cool. Well, we'll listen to that. We'll list those in the show notes. If you think of anything else, just shoot me an email. Yeah, that'd be good.
I will. And I'm not lying. I do love your show too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's fun to produce. I can tell you that. It's a blast. Yeah. How about your favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
Oh boy. And can I have a couple or
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You can have a couple.
Gosh, I have to say under $100. That's a little bit of a curveball because some of the
not rodeo prices either. We sometimes get insider deals. Not that.
Gosh, I think that's over $100.
It could be 120, you know.
I'd have to say then, like my go-to pack for just going to do an Animas Mountain here in town, like that's something I'll try and like get up and down like during a lunch break, for example. Or like if I'm training for Leadville, it's a push your bike up, ride down, because there's lots of pushing your bike up that nobody trains for in Leadville. But I literally, when that is open, it's closed in like October to March for wildlife migration and such. But when that thing's open, I go there as often as I can. And I have my pack and it has everything in it except like fresh water bottles and fresh snacks and dog treats. And so it's always in my car. And I feel like it's like related to me. Like when I see that in there, it just reminds me like
part of you now. Yeah.
Get out there again. So, and it's a Gregory. That's one of our clients.
Okay. Yeah.
Great stuff.
Cool. We'll link to that in the show notes too.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners or ask of our listeners?
Well, I definitely would like to say for the record how happy I am that I'm not in the vacuum cleaner or insurance industry or anything like that. Like I'm so happy I found my people, and I'm so blessed that I was able to like, you know, stay in when I started this. I remember when I was in my mid-20s, and I remember saying like, I love this so much that I want to like figure out a way to give back to this world, you know? And so before I exit stage left, I am going to do something that's going to be fantastic for the outdoor recreation economy. I don't know what that's going to be, but
cool.
That's something I'm really excited about. And then I also just want to say how incredibly blessed I feel to have our team at Verde. Like, I just feel like we have such an amazing team right now, and I love them all so much. Literally, Rick, I had people from my team at the finish line at Leadville and Steamboat Gravel. Like,
that's amazing.
And I went to a couple of events and was at the finish line for them. Like, we've developed this amazing athletic culture and camaraderie, and
that's very cool.
Climb the Grand together. We do like cool stuff. So I just feel like, I mean, I'm just really blessed, and the people in this world and the friends I've made here, I just can't, I like pinch myself. I can't believe how fortunate I am.
We're lucky to be in this business. It's a conduit for that, I think.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, that's good. And how can people find you if they want to reach out and ask questions or follow you? What's the best way?
Well, I'd have to say I'm kind of a LinkedIn nerd.
Okay.
I love Instagram, but I'm not the best at posting there, but I am on there. And Kristin Carpenter on LinkedIn is probably the best place to reach me. And then I also at KC Carpe Diem on Instagram.
Okay.
And I'm going to try and be more active there, but really I personally am on LinkedIn every day, and
gotcha.
I'm good about answering my messages
good.
And all that. So that's probably the best place. And then verdepr.com is another way and channelmastery.com. Those are linked, and they're a great place to learn about what we're up to too.
Yeah, we'll link to all that in the show notes, and we'll put links to all your Verde's socials and all that stuff. Yeah, good. Well, it's been great talking to you, Kristin. Thanks for coming on.
It's been an honor, Rick. So thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to all the cool stuff we're going to do in the future.
Yeah, stay tuned, everybody. We talked about some fun stuff. So we'll roll that out when we got it all buttoned up.
Thank you again.
It'll be fun. Thanks, Kristin.
All right.
Bye. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to go to theoutdoorbizpodcast.com where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. Until next time, be sure to make time to get outside.